$800,000 scattered across the marble floor, like a silent explosion, bills springing up, spinning through the air, then spilling out in front of dozens of stunned onlookers. And at the center of that shocked circle stood Jordan Carter, frozen not in embarrassment, but in the cold jolt running down his spine as he realized the truth. The woman before him had just flung aside the result of 20 years of labor, as if it were street trash. Emily Brooks, 31 years old, Liberty State Bank's star teller, known for her polished smile reserved for VIP clients, was now staring at him with a mix of disdain and icy judgment. "Take this illegal money and get away from my counter." Her voice rang out sharp and clear, slicing through the calm of the late weekend afternoon like a blade. Chloe Nguyen, a 20-year-old college student standing a few meters away, nearly dropped her phone. Her pulse kicked hard when she saw Emily's pointed heel grind a $100 bill right in front of Jordan. Chloe had no idea what was happening, but the instinct of someone young witnessing injustice made her hit the live stream button immediately. Her screen vibrated lightly. 4 people watching. Jordan stared down at the pile of bills. $800,000 in small denominations, collected from 12 laundromats' money he had gathered day after day, month after month, year after year, through sweat and a kind of persistence no one ever bothered to see. Those bills had passed through the hands of working families, mothers washing their children's clothes, night shift laborers, people needing a clean outfit for a job interview. The money wasn't glamorous, but it was clean, not clean the way Emily meant it, but clean in the truest sense, wealth born of labor. No one understood that, except Jordan. Emily crossed her arms and lifted her chin, every small movement dripping with judgment. "We do not handle this kind of money. This is a bank, not a place for you to come and wash dirty cash." Robert Hayes, the 48-year-old branch manager, stepped out of the glass office when he heard Emily's raised voice. His face showed no concern for Jordan, only the weary impatience of someone ready to close for the day and unwilling to deal with a late-minute problem. Dan Miller, the 55-year-old security guard, stood right behind Jordan. His hand hovered over his radio out of habit, but his heart felt heavy. He had seen troublemakers, thieves, drunks, but the man in front of him was none of those things. Jordan didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't ask why. He simply knelt and picked up the bills piece by piece, moving slowly, almost gently, as if handling fragments of memories someone else had violently rejected. When he reached the last bill, Chloe noticed his hands trembling slightly. But what sent chills through her wasn't the tremor, it was his eyes, not angry, not resentful, but a terrifying stillness, as if he had finally understood something far bigger than anyone else in the room. Viewer count rising. 21 people watching. Emily kept going. "Your paperwork is insufficient. $800,000 in small cash dressed like that. Do you really think we would believe you?" Everyone heard the emphasis in her final words. Dan heard it. Chloe heard it. Jordan heard it. And they all understood. Like that wasn't about the hoodie or the jeans. Robert tapped his pen against the counter, impatient. "If you do not leave, we will have to call the police." In that moment, a small click echoed inside Jordan's mind. Not the sound of breaking, but the sound of something opening. He rose, slowly gathered the money, closed the brown leather case that had traveled with him for years. And when he looked up, the entire lobby seemed to slow for a beat. Chloe swallowed hard. Dan let his hand drop from the radio. Emily instinctively stepped half a pace back, because in that instant, Jordan Carter was no longer the black man suspected of carrying dirty money. His eyes had shifted sharp and deep, the gaze of someone used to making decisions that affected hundreds of employees and millions of dollars. His entire expression changed, not the submissive look of a customer being insulted, but the dangerous calm of someone considering a response, and not the response they expected. Chloe whispered to her camera, "Everyone, he's too calm, the kind of calm that scares you." Viewers jumped to 64. Robert snapped, "You need to leave, now." Jordan slowly set the case on the counter. "I will leave," he said, his voice low, yet carrying through the entire room. "But before that, I need to make a call." Emily scoffed. "Who are you calling your lawyer, your friends?" Jordan met her gaze directly, and the coldness in his eyes shut her up instantly. "No," he said. "I'm calling someone else." He took out his phone, a large screen device that didn't look like any commercial model. Chloe zoomed in. Robert frowned. Dan leaned closer, and Emily, without understanding why, felt her heart skip. Jordan pressed call. The line picked up immediately. A professional woman's voice came through, "Hello, Jordan. I didn't think you'd call today." "Everything all right?" Emily's face froze. Robert shot a quick look toward the live stream camera. Dan took a step back. Chloe brought a hand to her mouth, and Jordan spoke the sentence that froze the entire lobby solid. "Lauren, accelerate the Chicago acquisition. We're moving forward immediately." Viewers surged 113, then 197. Jordan lifted his eyes toward Emily. What she saw there was no longer endurance. It was a silent verdict. "You just made the biggest mistake of your career." The call continued, the voice on the other end, clear and cold. "Are you certain, Jordan? This will directly impact Liberty State Bank." Emily went pale. Robert felt sweat running down his back. Dan exhaled sharply, and Chloe, phone trembling in her hands, whispered, "Everyone, I think this is huge." Jordan ended the call. The lobby fell into a silence, heavy enough to crush air. He lifted his case, looked at the three employees, and said softly, lighter than a breeze but sharper than a blade, "All right. Now we can continue. Viewer count 312. And still climbing, as if the entire world had just tuned in to witness the moment a bank made a historic mistake with the one man they should never have crossed. The moment Jordan lowered his phone, the entire banking hall seemed to stretch tight, the air compressing into breathless pockets that made everyone feel as if they were standing inside a countdown before an explosion. Every gaze locked onto him, not because he had made noise, not because he was angry, but because his silence had become a form of absolute authority, overpowering even the hum of the air conditioning and the clicking keyboards behind the counters. Chloe gripped her phone so tightly her fingers turned white. Her live stream had just passed 300 viewers, and the comment box was rolling like a summer thunderstorm. Messages flashed across her screen. What is happening right now? Did someone hear the word acquisition? The guard is shaking. Who is this guy? Chloe swallowed hard. She wasn't sure if she was recording a case of discrimination or accidentally broadcasting a moment that would rewrite the history of the entire bank. Jordan closed his phone, rotated his wrist lightly, as if brushing off invisible dust, then looked directly at Robert. That look made the man who was supposed to be the most powerful figure in the branch feel as if someone were peeling back his layers one by one. "You said you needed to throw me out because you were closing soon," Jordan asked, his voice unsettlingly calm. Robert swallowed and tried to keep his tone firm. "Yes. The bank is about to close." "Then all I need is 2 minutes," Jordan replied. 2 more minutes, then I will leave. Emily lifted her chin, trying to reclaim control, but her voice came out noticeably weaker. You have no right to ask for anything here. Jordan turned toward her and frowned slightly, as if noticing a minor error in a financial report. You truly believe that? At that moment, Robert's phone vibrated non-stop 3 missed calls in roughly 4 seconds. The caller ID flashed clearly, Regional Director Harold Pierce. Robert's face drained. That was not someone who called over small issues. He was about to step into his office to take the call, when Jordan's voice floated out gently. You should take it here. His voice wasn't loud, wasn't harsh, yet it carried an invisible command that froze Robert in place. Dan Miller, the longtime guard, even stepped back half a pace without realizing it. He recognized that feeling, the feeling of standing in front of someone whose authority was so great that even the sound of their breath could become instruction. Robert answered with trembling fingers. Pierce Afosa Harold's voice roared so loudly the entire lobby could hear it through the receiver. Robert, what on earth is happening at your branch? I'm getting hundreds of calls about a live stream accusing the Chicago downtown branch of discrimination. What exactly are you doing over there? Robert looked at Jordan, at Emily, at Chloe, and finally exhaled a pitiful sentence. There may be some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, Harold's voice cracked with rage. I am watching the live stream right now. The entire internet is watching, and you call this a misunderstanding. Fix it right now. If you don't, the board will know before I even hang up. Robert stammered. Yes, I will handle it. But Jordan stepped forward. Mr. Pierce. Robert jolted, nearly dropping his phone. Jordan continued calm, but clear enough for Harold to hear. This is Jordan Carter. I will explain the situation myself. Silence on the line for half a second. Then Harold's voice dropped steady, but shaken. Mr. Carter, is that really you? Yes, Jordan replied. And yes, you should watch the entire live stream. That single answer hit everyone in the room like a blow. Emily felt the blood drain from her body. Chloe's eyes widened, her mind blanking even as she continued streaming. Dan stood straighter, stunned. Harold inhaled deeply on the line. Mr. Carter, I do not know what happened, but this is turning into a full-blown media crisis. I will alert the executive board immediately. Jordan said only you should do that. When the call ended, the entire room plunged into an emotional vacuum. Jordan returned to the counter, opened his briefcase, and pulled out a dark brown leather portfolio. He placed it on the desk with the care of a ritual. Chloe zoomed in. Everyone held their breath. Emily stepped back again. Jordan opened the portfolio. Inside were thick documents, embossed seals, legal papers, bank asset reports, branch performance charts, and revenue consolidation sheets for the Midwest region. At the center was a full-page file, Liberty State Bank, Chicago acquisition. Approved valuation, $847 million. Emily's jaw dropped. Robert trembled so badly he could barely stand. Dan whispered, "Dear God." Chloe nearly shouted into her live stream. Everyone he is buying this entire bank. Viewer count 531, climbing fast. Jordan did not look at anyone as he placed a single sheet in front of Robert. This is the acquisition file for the Chicago branch, or to be precise, the file that had been approved. Had been Robert's voice cracked? Jordan nodded slightly, his gaze sharp as steel. Yes. Because after today's incident, this acquisition is no longer suitable. Any organization whose employees treat customers like criminals, based solely on their clothes and skin color, does not meet the cultural standards required to join our group. Emily felt her knees go weak. Dan clasped his hands tightly. Disbelief etched across his face. Chloe exhaled sharply to her camera. This is CEO-level revenge. Jordan turned to Emily. Do you remember when you said my money was dirty? Emily could not form a reply. Jordan continued, his voice low and compressed. The only thing dirty here is your perspective. The words shattered the air. Live stream viewers surged past 700. Robert opened his mouth to defend himself, but Jordan lifted a hand. Don't speak. I'm not finished. He took out his phone again, but this time his movements were slower, heavier, as if preparing for the final strike, one no one in the room could stop. I am making one more call, Jordan said. And after that, this bank will never be the same again. Live stream, 842 viewers. Chloe shivered. Emily gasped. Robert leaned on the counter to stay upright. Dan muttered something like a prayer. Jordan pressed call. The line connected immediately, and the entire room held its breath as he spoke the first words. Initiate the organizational culture audit. Immediately. The live stream crossed 1,000 viewers before Emily managed to whisper, Who are you? Jordan looked directly at her. His eyes were no longer those of a customer. They were the eyes of a man who could destroy or save an entire system with a single decision. I am the person, Jordan said slowly, each word echoing against the marble walls, you should never have insulted. The sharp beep ending Jordan's call sliced through the lobby like an invisible blade, tearing apart whatever scraps of authority Robert or Emily were still clinging to. Everyone stood motionless, like living statues trapped between two breaths. Then Jordan lowered his phone, his eyes narrowing, not out of anger, but as if he were calmly deciding his next move, the way an executive accustomed to handling $100 million deals weighs decisions in absolute stillness. Chloe stared at her screen as the viewer count jumped to 1,200, then 1,400, then 1,800. The comment section exploded. Who is this man? Is he a CEO? Liberty State is done for. Keep filming, don't stop, that woman is finished. Chloe swallowed hard, but her hands stayed firm, gripping the phone like a war correspondent, documenting a historic moment. Jordan looked at Robert first. Mr. Hayes, he said, his voice low and solid, each word dropping like lead onto the marble floor. Do you know what an organizational culture audit involves? Robert stuttered, I think maybe it means, Jordan continued, his voice steady and precise. It means every document, every transaction, every way your employees interact with customers, every training session, every security camera, every internal report, and every violation in the past 24 months. His tone didn't rise, didn't rush, but every word felt sharp enough to cut. Everything will be opened, examined, dissected. Emily gripped the edge of the counter to keep from collapsing. She knew what that meant. Once federal oversight stepped in, nothing could be hidden. Jordan added, in the coming days, you will receive dozens of emails from our legal division requesting documents. I suggest you prepare yourself. Robert managed only a thin breath. Carter, we can negotiate. There is no negotiation. 3 words, 3 blades. No one in that bank had ever heard anyone speak to a branch manager like that. Chloe whispered into her live stream. Oh my God, he dropped that like a thunderbolt. Viewers skyrocketed to 2,300. Jordan turned to Dan. The longtime guard's eyes softened all of his earlier suspicion, gone. Mr. Miller Jordan said quietly, I want to ask you something. When you saw me walk in, did you think I was dangerous? Dan blinked several times. He was 55, had seen every type of person walk through that door, and he didn't want to lie to this man, not out of fear, but out of respect. No, Dan answered, his voice rough but sincere. I never thought that. Jordan nodded before he had to finish. Thank you for being honest. Dan exhaled deeply, as if finally allowed to speak, a truth no one had ever asked him. Then Jordan turned to Emily, the person everyone was waiting for. Emily stepped back again, but Jordan stepped forward, each footfall heavy enough to feel like the floor itself was vibrating. Ms. Brooks, he said, his eyes sharp and piercing, as if cutting straight into her thoughts. Do you know the exact moment I decided to stop the acquisition? Emily couldn't answer. Her mouth was dry, her eyes wide. It wasn't when you knocked my money onto the floor, Jordan said. That memory will fade. Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Jordan continued. It wasn't when you called my money dirty. It wasn't when you mocked my paperwork. It wasn't when you told me to go clean. He paused for half a second. The entire room held its breath. The moment I stopped the deal was when you looked at me wearing a hoodie and decided I must be a criminal. No verification, no questions, just a glance. A small broken sob slipped from Emily's throat. Chloe brought the camera closer. Viewer count crossed 3,000. Jordan's voice softened, but became sharper than steel. You didn't knock my money onto the floor. You knocked my dignity onto the floor. An older woman in the corner covered her mouth, eyes swelling with tears. Dan closed his eyes and shook his head slowly. Robert stood frozen like a man who had just heard his sentence. Jordan opened his portfolio again and removed another document. I want everyone to see this. He held the paper up as Chloe zoomed in. Printed clearly, Liberty State Bank, Cultural Compliance Risk Assessment, score 62 out of 100 rated marginal, requires immediate re-evaluation. Robert's face drained to grey. That means, Jordan nodded. It means your institution was already on a high-risk list for cultural investigation. You were already under scrutiny. I didn't come here today to evaluate a transaction. I came to evaluate people. Emily whispered. Why would you? Jordan looked at her long enough that she dropped her gaze. Because I once stood exactly where you stand, he said. Before I became a CEO, I was treated like someone unworthy of stepping inside a bank. His voice dropped lower, gentler, but somehow even heavier. I know what it feels like to be treated like trash. I know what it feels like to be suspected because of how you look. I know what it feels like to be underestimated by people who know nothing about you. Emily covered her mouth, eyes red. Robert bowed his head. Dan turned away to hide his own. Jordan continued emphasizing every word. I spent 20 years building my career, so no one would ever have the right to decide who I am with a single glance. The entire bank fell silent. All that remained was the frantic heartbeat of people who had believed they had the right to judge others. Chloe brought the camera even closer. Everyone, he's not just speaking for himself. He's speaking for everyone who has ever been treated unfairly. The live stream passed 4,000 viewers. Jordan finally stepped back, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I'm not here today to teach you a lesson. I'm here to start a change. Emily exhaled shakily, as if released from a chokehold. Jordan closed his portfolio and fastened the lock. And change, he said, usually begins with the biggest mistake. Chloe whispered. Oh my God, that line is going viral. Robert opened his mouth to plead, to ask for forgiveness for a second chance, but Jordan stopped him with a single look. I'm not finished, he said. This is only the beginning. And at that exact moment, Chloe glanced at her screen and gasped. Everyone, 5,000 people are watching. Jordan stood in the center of the lobby, the white lights reflecting in eyes that were calm but undeniably commanding. A normal man. No. A powerful CEO, yes. But more than that, a man who understood the value of dignity. And this was only the beginning of the storm Liberty State Bank was about to face. Jordan lifted his phone once more, and this time the silence in the banking hall was no longer merely fear. It was the awareness that something far greater was about to unfold. The white lights reflected off his screen, making it shine like a warning beacon to the entire bank. Your arrogance has just crossed paths with the wrong person. Chloe gripped her phone even tighter, her lips trembling as she realized she was live-streaming a moment that in a few hours could make the front pages of multiple financial newspapers. The viewer count jumped from 5,200 to 5,700 in just 20 seconds. Jordan swiped carefully, selecting the exact contact he needed. A female voice came through the line, immediately clear, sharp, professional, yet full of respect. Hello, Mr. Carter. I am ready. Emily stiffened. Robert sat upright as if shocked by electricity. Dan's eyes widened, and Chloe whispered into the live stream. Oh my God, that voice is not ordinary staff. Jordan spoke tersely. Activate the system-wide operational audit for Liberty State Bank. Now, priority highest. The response was immediate, without hesitation. Confirmed. I will contact the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation regional office and our internal legal team directly. Do you want an official notice? Drafted. Yes. Jordan replied, scanning Emily and pausing on Robert. Prioritize sending a copy to the Board of Directors of Liberty State. The line responded, draft prepared. I will send it within 5 minutes. The call ended, but the impact had just begun. Instantly, Robert's phone rang loudly, vibrating so violently it threatened to leap from his pocket. He looked at the screen and turned completely pale. Board Chairwoman Evelyn Parker. Chloe almost shrieked into the live stream. Everyone the board chair is calling now. Robert hesitated for less than a second before Jordan calmly said, Put it on speaker. Not a request, but a command. Evelyn's voice came through immediately urgent, tense, and angry Robert. What is happening at the Chicago branch? I am receiving reports that a customer is live-streaming allegations of racial discrimination. Someone explain this to me. Robert stammered. I am trying to handle. Trying, Evelyn. Almost shouted. Have you seen the internet? I have dozens of emails from the media, from the Treasury, from the FDIC. And I just received a notification that Mr. Carter activated a system-wide operational audit. Is this true? Robert looked at Jordan, sweat running down his temple. Yes, it's true. A chilling silence followed. Then Evelyn's voice lowered, but the lower it went, the more dangerous it felt. Transfer the line to Mr. Carter. Robert handed over the phone, his hands trembling, as if passing his own life into someone else's care. Jordan placed the phone in front of him, speaking slowly, but coldly. I am listening. Mr. Carter, Evelyn, said her voice low, as if trying to keep calm against a storm. I regret the incident at our branch. But this system-wide audit, can you review it? It will disrupt all operations at Liberty State. Jordan responded directly, unwavering, I am aware. A heavy pause followed. Evelyn continued, her tone softening under pressure. We are prepared to apologize to compensate and handle internal measures. But please at least allow us to speak directly before you. Jordan cut her off. I have seen enough. When your staff threw my money onto the floor and called it dirty, they were not treating a customer. They were acting on prejudice. Emily clutched her head, tears streaming as each word pierced directly through her mistakes. Jordan continued, measured, yet cutting. You ask why I activated the audit. Because a bank is not measured solely by the numbers in quarterly reports. It is measured by how it treats the people who walk through its doors. Evelyn struggled to keep her voice steady. We understand, but you did nothing, Jordan interrupted. Not until the live stream cameras turned on. In the corner, an elderly customer sighed, shaking his head heavily. Chloe held her camera closer, holding her breath. Jordan continued. I don't want the press to spread this. I want change. Evelyn fell silent for a moment, her voice faint. What do you need for me to stop this? Jordan did not answer immediately. He looked around the room. Emily was crying. Robert stood frozen. Dan bowed his head. The remaining customers had not left, unable to believe they were witnessing a CEO's fury without him raising his voice. Finally, Jordan said, You will know in a few minutes. He hung up. No one dared move. Chloe whispered, Everyone, I think he's about to deliver the final blow. At that moment, Robert's phone rang again. Compliance Director Melissa Grant. Robert glanced at Jordan, who nodded lightly. Robert put the call on speaker. Melissa's voice was sharp and precise, like a freshly sharpened blade. Robert, I have just received the operational audit and the racial discrimination complaint. Legal requires immediate suspension of any employees involved in the incident. That includes tellers, supervisors, and anyone who participated in the denial of service. Emily collapsed into her chair, realizing her name was at the top of the list. But Melissa wasn't finished. If suspension is not enacted within 5 minutes, the branch will be frozen under Clause 14. Bravo! Dan gasped. Robert held his head. Chloe covered her mouth, breathing sharply. Oh my God, they're about to shut the branch. Jordan stood, still, eyes fixed on Emily. No malice, no revenge, only the truth being revealed. Melissa asked Robert, Have you suspended them? Robert spoke haltingly. I will proceed immediately. Jordan nodded slightly, but he still spoke his words, nearly knocking the entire hall to its knees. This is only the first step, Chloe whispered, live stream surpassing 7,000 viewers. We are about to witness history, and at the center of this storm, Jordan Carter stood calm, unshaken, embodying the stillness of a man preparing to redefine the value of a bank through the very dignity they had trampled. Jordan Carter set his phone down on the counter, his gaze maintaining absolute calm, yet in that instant, the entire Liberty State Bank lobby seemed to hold its breath. Chloe Nguyen froze, eyes glued to her live stream screen, the viewer count surging to 8,500, the comment feed erupting. Who is this guy? Is he really a CEO? $847 million deal. Jordan opened his brown leather portfolio and gently placed it on the counter, where $800,000 had just been thrown bills still scattered across the marble floor, a living testament to the contempt the bank employees had just displayed. He turned each page, deliberately revealing spreadsheets, legal documents, income reports, branch charts, all stamped with red seals, confirming his legal authority and absolute power within the banking system. Emily Brooks stared at the figures, her heart-racing eyes blurring as she realized the man she had just judged as a criminal held the fate of the very bank she worked for. Robert Hayes stepped back, sweat running down his forehead, feeling caught in a vortex of power he had never experienced. Dan Miller, the veteran security guard, felt his body tremble slightly, realizing he was standing before a man who was not just any customer, but someone capable of deciding the survival of hundreds of employees and millions of dollars in assets. Chloe whispered to the camera, "Everyone, he's standing here. And I think he's a CEO." Jordan didn't speak to Chloe. He simply closed the portfolio seriously and placed a business card on the counter. Jordan Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Atlantic Horizon Banking Group. The entire lobby was silent, not a single sound, only the pounding hearts of the witnesses. Emily stepped back, her face pale, cold sweat dripping down. Robert nearly collapsed, but forced himself upright to continue listening. Dan clenched his fists, feeling the weight of power present before him. Jordan picked up a second tablet, a specialized device displaying the full dashboard of the AHBG banking network, from 47 branches to partners and acquisition targets. All operational information, financial indicators, and pending deals appeared clearly. Jordan scanned Emily, Robert, Dan, then slowly spoke. "Today you made a mistake. A mistake that may have seemed small, but it is enough to alter my entire plan. Ms. Brooks, you threw my money onto the floor and called it dirty. That action did not just insult me personally. It exposed a deeply ingrained system of bias." Chloe inhaled sharply, her camera trembling the viewer count, surpassing 10,000. "You think I came here just to make trouble?" Jordan continued, his voice deep and firm. "No. I came here to begin a change. Every Liberty State Bank employee will be evaluated, every process will be reviewed, and every act of discrimination will be recorded." Emily slumped in her chair, covering her face, feeling swept into a historical storm she had helped unleash. Robert stood frozen, mouth dry, trying to calculate whether this bank had any chance of salvaging its reputation. Dan stepped fully back, sensing a type of authority he had never witnessed, a power expressed not through yelling or intimidation, but through calm understanding and absolute preparation. Jordan lifted his phone once more, calling Evelyn Parker, chairwoman of the AHBG board. Chloe nearly shouted into the live stream, "Oh my God, the chairwoman is speaking directly with the CEO, and we are watching." Jordan's voice rang throughout the lobby, sharp but not angry. "Ms. Parker, Liberty State Bank has demonstrated discriminatory behavior toward me. I request an immediate system-wide audit of the entire branch, and all employees involved must be suspended." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Mr. Carter." "Ah, yes, I understand. We will act immediately." Robert, Emily, and Dan all realized this was no longer an internal crisis. This was a revolution of authority. Jordan set the phone down, staring at Emily. "Do you see, respect is not optional. It is a rule. What you just did will have consequences. But I do not wish to destroy anyone. I want change." Chloe panned the camera, the viewer count, jumping to 12,000. Jordan reopened his portfolio, pulling out a set of branch reform documents. Bias awareness training plans, customer behavior monitoring systems, quarterly public reports. He placed everything on the counter, like irrefutable evidence. "This is what will happen from now on. Everyone will learn. Everyone will change, not out of fear, but because of truth." Emily covered her face, tears streaming. Robert looked down, understanding that today's power had entirely shifted the hierarchy within the bank. Dan Miller stood, silently breathing deeply, realizing he had just witnessed a CEO reshape the fate of hundreds of employees and millions of dollars in assets without shouting or coercion, only through preparation, evidence, and strategy. Jordan closed the portfolio, gently placed the briefcase on his shoulder, and stepped away from the counter. Chloe whispered into the live stream, her voice trembling. Everyone, he just changed the entire system. With a single phone call and absolute composure, this is history viewer count surged to 15,000. No one in the lobby moved, all eyes following Jordan Carter across the marble hall, a man leaving a profound mark of authority, a lesson in respect and strategy, and a message that today's mistakes can become tomorrow's opportunities to change an entire system. The moment Jordan Carter stepped away from the counter, the air in the Liberty State Bank lobby remained heavy, as if time itself had slowed, capturing everyone in a moment where the history of the bank had just been rewritten. Chloe Nguyen held her camera fixed on him, heart pounding, the live stream viewers soaring to 16,500 comments, flooding in from all over. Unbelievable, CEO, this calm Liberty State Bank is about to be completely overturned. Look at his eyes, cold and powerful. Emily Brooks leaned against the counter, head bowed, tears streaking her cheeks, feeling every bone in her neck pressed down as she realized that all the authority she had thought she held her reputation. Her control, even her neat uniform, had vanished before the silent yet overwhelming presence of Jordan. Robert Hayes stood motionless, hands gripping his pen, fear coursing through him as he understood that no explanation could cover the historic mistake the branch had just committed. Dan Miller, standing behind, eyes fixed on Jordan, felt a power that required no yelling, no force, a power derived purely from knowledge, preparation, and vision, the kind that could reshape an entire banking network in minutes. Jordan paused in the center of the lobby, slowly removing his briefcase, placing it on the table, his hand reaching for a new tablet. The screen's light illuminated his face, highlighting every stern, calm, and commanding feature. Chloe zoomed in, the viewer count surpassing 18,000, the comment feed erupting. What is he about to do? Unbelievable, an ordinary person controlling everything like this. Historic scene. Jordan opened the tablet, displaying the full AHBG banking network map, 47 branches, partners' acquisition targets, and operational status. All operational data, financial indicators, and pending transactions were displayed in real time, showing high-risk branches, ongoing deals, and employee evaluation reports. He scanned Emily, Robert, Dan, then slowly turned to Chloe. "You're live streaming, right?" Chloe nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, I'm broadcasting to everyone." Jordan looked deeply into her eyes, neither angry nor contemptuous, only absolute calm. Let them see the truth. Everyone needs to witness how prejudice and ignorance can destroy an organization in minutes. Emily covered her face, silent tears streaming. Robert trembled, swallowing hard, realizing he and every employee had just witnessed and were directly responsible for a collapse of authority in the system. Dan stood still, sensing clearly that power did not always come from position or uniform. Sometimes it lay in silence, in preparation, and in the ability to read situations no one else recognized. Jordan opened another file, spreading it before everyone: financial reports, legal documents, branch operation plans, customer data, internal monitoring systems, and employee evaluations. He pointed to each item. "This is what I control. Everything is accurate, and what just happened will be recorded, analyzed, and used to decide the fate of this branch." Emily stepped back, head down, feeling as if every breath had been crushed. Chloe whispered into the live stream, "Everyone, he has. All the data. Everything unbelievable." Viewers jumped to 20,000. Jordan turned to Robert. "See, the power you thought you held was an illusion. I can overturn the entire network with a single decision." Robert could not speak, eyes glued to the tablet showing branch lists, financial data, and personnel records all in Jordan's hands. Dan froze, realizing he was only a small part of the larger picture Jordan had long been orchestrating. Chloe zoomed the camera on Emily, capturing every tear, every panic-stricken expression, yet Jordan remained still silent, as if waiting for the precise moment to deliver the final strike. He lifted his phone again, calling Patricia Collins, chairwoman of the AHBG board. His voice calm but cutting like a blade. "Ms. Collins, the situation at Liberty State Bank has exceeded internal control. I am requesting an immediate audit of all branches and suspension of the employees involved. I want all data and files sent directly to me." Chloe almost shouted, "Oh my God, 21,000 viewers." Patricia responded, voice trembling. "Yes, yes, I will act immediately." Jordan set the phone down, opened another file pointing to Emily Brooks. "You will be suspended immediately, not as punishment, but to ensure every step in the process is monitored and evaluated fairly." Emily collapsed in her chair, covering her face, feeling as if the entire world was collapsing around her. Robert stood frozen, Dan silent. Jordan raised the tablet displaying branch data and employee records directly to Chloe. "Let everyone see this. This is not personal anger. This is evidence of the consequences of prejudice and management errors," Chloe whispered into the live stream. He is changing the entire system with silence and data. I cannot believe it." Viewer count soared to 25,000. Jordan closed all the files, picked up his portfolio, gently placed it on his shoulder, and walked through the lobby, eyes steady as iron. Everyone stood frozen. Chloe nearly dropped her phone from trembling. Jordan paused, looking at Emily one last time. "Remember, power is not for looking down on others. It is to create change." All eyes followed him as he exited the lobby, and in that moment, Liberty State Bank was no longer the place they once knew. The illusion of power had completely dissolved, replaced by the realization that a person meticulously prepared, armed with information and steadfast in their values, could alter an entire system in mere minutes. Chloe whispered, "Live stream viewers at 27,000. Everyone we just witnessed, a CEO change an entire bank, without yelling, without force, just through preparation and silence. And everyone present felt without question that today everything had changed forever." Jordan Carter stood in the center of the Liberty State Bank lobby, the overhead lights reflecting in his eyes, sharp as steel, each step carrying the weight of millions of dollars' authority and the fairness he was about to impose. Chloe Nguyen held her phone hands, trembling eyes wide, with the knowledge that she was witnessing a historic moment. The live stream viewers surging past 30,000 comments exploding. He's teaching a historic lesson. This deal will change the entire bank, CEO and absolute power. Jordan opened his portfolio again, this time revealing the pre-prepared restructuring files, each page marked with red and yellow tabs, containing detailed instructions for overhauling Liberty State Bank from employee training, customer service standards, transaction monitoring to transparent quarterly reporting. He placed each page carefully on the counter, where $800,000 had been thrown earlier, turning them into undeniable proof of real authority. Emily Brooks sat against a chair, hands shaking, tears streaming, heart racing, realizing she had just made a mistake no excuse could cover. Robert Hayes stood frozen, feeling like a ghost in the room, as a calm yet commanding man established a new order. Dan Miller, the veteran security guard, remained silent, breathing heavily, realizing he was witnessing power derived not from uniform or title, but from preparation and knowledge. Jordan lifted a third tablet, connected directly to the internal monitoring system and regional banking data, displaying every branch employee transaction and compliance record in clear, real-time detail. He fixed his gaze on Emily Moores-Brooks. I want you to understand that today was not just about throwing money on the floor. You exposed a system filled with bias and lack of standards unchecked by anyone. Chloe inhaled sharply, viewers jumping to 32,000 comments streaming. He's teaching a live lesson. Liberty State Bank is about to be completely transformed. The CEO stands there, calm, holding the entire bank in his hands. Jordan continued, his voice deep and steady. We will begin by suspending all involved employees. Not as punishment, but to ensure every process is monitored, every mistake is documented and handled fairly. You will participate in bias awareness training for 90 days, after which you will become a trainer for other branches. Emily's mouth fell open, tears falling. She could not imagine that a single decision in a few seconds could alter her career and serve as a lesson for hundreds of others. Robert trembled, unsure what to do, eyes glued to the tablet displaying branch metrics, financial data, and personnel records, each number reinforcing the absolute power Jordan held. Dan stood frozen, realizing Jordan's silence was more powerful than any shouting or threat. True authority came from situational control and meticulous preparation. Jordan lifted his phone once more, calling Patricia Collins, chairwoman of the AHBG board. His voice calm but sharp, Ms. Collins. I request that all Liberty State Bank branches be audited, involved employees suspended immediately, and all records sent directly to me. I want everyone to witness that discriminatory behavior will be recorded and handled seriously. Chloe zoomed in, viewers surpassing 35,000 comments erupting. The CEO is setting new rules, or he doesn't need to shout to dominate the entire bank. Major changes are coming to the banking sector. Jordan set the phone down, surveying the lobby eyes, stopping on Emily, Robert, Dan, and all the customers watching. He spoke slowly, each word resonating in the ears of everyone present. Today, you have witnessed real power. Power does not come from title or uniform, but from preparation, knowledge, and execution. Your mistakes today will be a lesson for all. Emily cried aloud. Robert bowed his head. Dan exhaled deeply. Chloe whispered into the live stream. Everyone, he just set new rules and everyone must follow them. Viewers jumped to 37,000, the comments full of awe and admiration. Jordan closed the files, lifted his portfolio, and walked slowly across the lobby, each step carrying the weight of authority and change. He paused once more, looking at Emily, voice deep and commanding. You will learn from today, not because I want to punish, but so that you and the system understand the value of respect, fairness, and responsibility. Emily lowered her head, tears streaming, heart-racing feeling, as if she had been taught an unforgettable lesson. Chloe whispered into her camera live stream, surpassing 40,000 viewers. Everyone we just witnessed. A CEO change an entire system, without yelling, without force, just through preparation and absolute silence. This is history. All eyes followed Jordan as he exited the lobby, understanding clearly that today everything had changed, and no one would ever forget this moment of true authority. The next day, Liberty State Bank was completely transformed. Every light from the ceiling reflected off the marble floor, sparkling in a new way, no longer heavy or oppressive like the day before. Emily Brooks, now temporarily suspended, entered the training room, where a sign reading 90-Day Bias Awareness Program hung prominently on the wall. She felt every step, every breath, every drop of sweat weighed down by the realization that yesterday's mistake had not only shattered her confidence, but had also nearly pushed the bank to the brink of disaster. Robert Hayes sat in his office, staring at the tablet screen where employee and branch evaluation reports were displayed in red and green, each color indicating compliance with the new policies. Robert understood that authority no longer resided in title or 20 years of experience, but in conduct accountability and data transparency. Dan Miller, the veteran security guard, reviewed the employee roster and camera feeds, recognizing that the system now ran not on subjective judgment, but on intelligent, fair, verifiable oversight. Chloe Nguyen, standing in the lobby holding her live-stream phone, now had over 15,000 viewers capturing every change, every smile, every glance of the staff, a testament that yesterday's story was not just a viral moment, but a lesson in power responsibility and systemic change. Jordan Carter, CEO of Atlantic Horizon Banking Group, appeared like a shadow of authority, requiring no shouting, no pressure, simply standing and observing, nodding slightly. As Emily entered the training room, seeing Robert focused on the data and Dan monitoring employees carefully. Everything moved slowly but deliberately, each action carrying a message. Mistakes can become opportunities, and true power lies in the ability to turn lessons learned from prejudice into systemic change. Emily sat down, hands trembling, as she opened her notebook, eyes on the bank logo, finally feeling the importance of restoring trust with customers and colleagues. Robert adjusted the reports, monitoring every figure, closely realizing that yesterday's behavior could no longer be tolerated. All had to be recorded, analyzed, and improved. Dan Miller walked through the lobby, observing how newly trained staff interacted with customers, smiles appearing on faces, attitudes completely different from the day before, respectful and composed, demonstrating that power no longer came from issuing commands, but from establishing new standards. Chloe whispered into the camera, "Everyone today proves that real change begins with the biggest mistakes, and everyone can learn from them." Jordan stood silently watching the entire lobby, a faint smile forming not a smile of triumph or vengeance, but the satisfaction of seeing power used correctly, to teach, to correct, to create a sustainable fare system for all customers, all employees, and the community. The young staff exchanged glances, eyes bright, realizing that today was a turning point, a historic moment where every action, attitude, and decision could influence the future of the bank and those around it. Everything continued, but without the fear or tension of the day, before replaced by alertness, preparedness, and respect, as everyone understood that true power does not come from title or authority, but from the ability to change how people think and act, transforming a bank once filled with prejudice into a place where dignity and fairness come first. Chloe panned the camera, voice trembling but full of emotion. "Everyone look, yesterday's mistakes have become today's opportunities, and this is how systemic change begins." Emily looked around, taking a deep breath, a sense of relief spreading through her. She understood that the journey of learning, recovery, and improvement had only just begun, but for the first time, she saw light at the end of the tunnel, realizing that power, when used correctly, can create changes beyond imagination. 30 days later, Liberty State Bank was completely transformed. Multilingual signs hung throughout the lobby, The staff was diverse, smiles appeared on their faces, and every transaction took place with respect and transparency. Emily Brooks, having completed the bias awareness training, walked through the lobby with composure, recognizing that each action from the day before had become a valuable lesson. Robert Hayes remained as branch manager, but now he monitored every compliance report and weekly employee evaluation, closely learning how to wield authority responsibly. Dan Miller oversaw security, but no longer merely as a guardian of order. He was now a witness to the cultural transformation within the bank. Chloe Nguyen live-streamed her audience, having grown to 12,000 viewers, capturing every detail from the customer satisfaction displays to how employees greeted clients, to the fact that every interaction was measured and assessed fairly. Jordan Carter stood in the corner of the lobby, his gaze calm yet commanding, observing the entire system operating smoothly, witnessing the establishment of new values, respect, fairness, and accountability. Once again, power did not come from a title, but from the ability to turn mistakes into opportunities and to create lasting change. Liberty State Bank had been completely transformed, no longer just a bank, but a symbol of systemic change and respect for human dignity. Emily Brooks, having completed the bias awareness program, walked confidently into the lobby, every smile and gesture reflecting the lessons learned from her past mistakes. Robert Hayes, as branch manager, maintained oversight reports and monitored compliance, ensuring that every action was controlled and every decision fair. Dan Miller, the veteran security guard, no longer simply maintained order, but also observed and recorded the new culture taking root within the bank. Chloe Nguyen, with 15,000 followers, live-streamed every detail from how employees greeted customers to the customer satisfaction displays to the fact that every transaction was conducted transparently and fairly. Jordan Carter stood silently in the corner of the lobby, a subtle yet commanding smile on his face, witnessing true power being exercised to create value and lasting change. Yesterday's mistakes had become today's legacy, sending a message that respect, accountability, and transparency do not merely save a bank, they set the standard for an entire financial system. From the perspective of an expert in organizational culture and corporate governance, the story of Jordan Carter and Liberty State Bank reveals a profound truth. True power does not come from titles or uniforms, but from the ability to create lasting change through preparation, transparency, and respect for people. A single moment of error, a decision based on bias that seems small, can shake an entire system. But it is also that very moment that opens the opportunity to redefine standards, build a new culture, and inspire others to act with integrity. If this story resonates with you, like the video to spread its value, subscribe to avoid missing future inspiring stories, and leave a comment in 3 words: real respect.